Picking sticks. In this tutorial we will create a game called Picking Sticks. It's even simpler to code than the game Pong. Here it is. That's Picking Sticks. You move around. You have a character. This time we'll have animation frames. Well, just one for each. We don't actually have an animation, but we do change frames. So you pick sticks to gather points and to increase your rank. There you go, I'm a stick picker. Okay, so that's basically the game. You pick sticks, increase the rank, and they move around. It's even simpler than Pong, as I said. So let's start coding it. Let's see. I think it's big enough, the text. So that's the default code that AppGameKit creates when you create a new project. That's the game loop. Let's put a comment. Game loop. So first thing we'll do is we'll create variables, global variables for the IDs for the stick and the player. And as you've seen, we'll also have text. So new things we'll see in this lesson is frames for sprites and text. That's it. And the controls are only for computer. If you wanna use, if you wanna create picking sticks for mobile, you'll need to use a joystick or something. So the goal of this lesson is just to teach you how to code. Let's start global. Let's make a comment. Load images. So first one is the global stick img. Its value is 1, the ID will be 1. We'll need 3 more of these. So this one will also be 1. That's the stick sprite. Sprites and images can have the same IDs because they're different objects in HGK. You can have an image with an ID of 1 and a sprite with an ID of 1. So for stick and stick sprite we'll use same number. Let's do the player. Player img and player stick. We also need to change it to 2. So now we have our IDs that we'll use when we'll create the images and sprites. Load image stick img and the image source is stick.png. Stick.png. It's inside the media folder in sticks. Here, that's the stick. That's the stick picker. It's a sprite map. And every time you move, it changes to one of these frames. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. So you get all of that with the files from GitHub. Let's continue. Let's load the player image. I see we didn't change this to sprite. So this will load the stick and the player image. Create sprites. Let's create sprites. So one sprite for the player, one sprite for the stick. The command is create sprite. We need to give it the stick img ID. and the sticks fine. Yeah, let's actually make sure. So create sprite. First you get a sprite index and image index. So it's the opposite. Okay, let's do set for the player. Sprite index and then the image index. Okay, so this will create so it's not called player. Stick picker. To load it at the top left. Yeah, you see both images there. Yeah, it doesn't recognize it as a sprite map, so it just drops the image. So let's make it the sprite map. We'll call it config sprite map. Now we're going to configure the sprite map so it will show only one frame instead of the whole sprite map. So we'll use the command set sprite animation, and the first argument it gets is the player sprite, and what are the other arguments? It's width and height. Let me show you, you'll see for yourself. In the commands you need to give it a sprite index, the frame width, the frame height, and the frame count, how many frames you have. So let's go to Paint and I'll show you. So we have like about 20 sprites. I also consider this as a frame. I mean, we have 20 frames. So let's see the size of it. It's supposed to be 36 by 36. You see it on the side here at the bottom. It's supposed to be 36 by 36. I measured it earlier, so I know. So it's 36 by 36. Basically, that's a frame. That's considered a frame, and that's the second frame, etc., etc. So, and we said we have 20 frames total. So you give it the sprite we wanna affect to set the animation, sprite animation for the frame width, frame height, and the frame count. So that should show us only one frame. Okay, perfect. It shows us the first frame. See, this one. So now we want to set it to the third frame, so it will look at us at the start. So the way we'll do this is change sprite to third frame. As you can tell, that there's not much explaining to do here because we're not doing logic, we're just writing commands and using the HEK framework. Let's see, set sprite frame. So this also gets two arguments, the player sprites and the frame we want to change to. We want to change to the third frame. Let's run it. And there we go, now it's looking at us. Next, we want to set a few variables, the player movement speed. Call it global speed is 5, and we want to create another variable to hold the player points so we can count the points. Player points, global points, it's 0 at the start, and we want something to hold the player's rank. Player rank, this one is a string, global rank, and then we need to tell HEK it's a string as string, and then we'll give it its default value equals none. And now we want to draw the points, we want to draw the text for the points and the rank. Create text. So for that, HEK also have a few functions, and each text should have its own ID, so we'll create two variables for text ID, for points and for rank. So that's the ID for points text. It can be 1 because it's not an image, it's not a sprite. You can have an image with the ID of 1, a sprite with an ID of 1, and a text with an ID of 1. There's no clashing here. Let's see. So the second one is the rank text. This one will be 2. And the command is create text. So you give it the ID and the initial text, let's say points. This will just drop it 0, 0. No, didn't even set its position. So we'll need to set the text positions for it to show. Let's create one for the rank text 2. Well, we can even leave it empty, it doesn't matter, because we're going to change the text with set text. So set text position. This one gets 3 arguments: the text ID, the text X, and the text Y. So 50 on the X-axis and 10 on the Y-axis. Let's see what this will do. Yeah, it's behind the images, so you can see it now. Let's do the rank text. Set its position to 250 by 10. 250 on the X-axis and 10 on the Y-axis. Let's see. Oh, I know what happened here. The text size is too small. You see? It's there, you can see it's a few pixels, but it's too small. So we'll need to change the text size. Set the text size. This one gets 2 arguments: the text ID, the text object you want to change, and its size. We want 30, and we want to do this for both of our text. Points, rank. Okay, so now we're done with our with all the boilerplate code we need to start manipulating stuff on the screen. And now we can go into the logic. We'll put in the game loop. So we'll need a few functions. The first one will be a random position, to position stuff at random, because when you play picking sticks, you pick sticks and they appear in random places, and the player also appear in a random position at the start of the game. So we'll create a function for that for any sprite. Any sprite you put in random pose, any sprite ID you give it, will be in the random position. Function random pose, and it gets the sprite ID, so it can so you can tell it which sprite you want to put in a random position. This will only be used at the start here to position the sprite and the stick, and when the player hits the stick. Let's see. We need the variable x, get sprite x, to get its x value. Sprite ID, and the same for y. Let's see. Set sprite x. We can also use a set sprite pose x. Oh, first we need to give it a sprite ID. Better. Y. Let's use random pose on the player and the stick. Create sprites, config sprite map. Here, I want to put it here. Player and stick random pose for the beginning of the game. Player sprite and stick sprite. We are using variables. I told you in the Pong game I'm using variables and not numbers, because if it says 1 here, which image does it load? Right? We don't know, but like this I know it loads the player image. And also I can use it anywhere, and if I want to change the ID, I don't have to go around and change numbers, I just change it here. So that's why I do that. Let's see it. It doesn't work. Interesting. Let's run it again. Interesting. And pause, SID. Oh, we didn't actually set it to a random position. I don't need that. My mistake. And 1 to 300. I'm so used to doing things like that, like getting the X and changing it. Like I'm not used to creating a function that gets a random X and Y. Now it should work. Yeah. And if we run it again, they will be in a random position. Yeah. So now we want to control the player. So we'll make a function called control player. Function control player. And it will also get an SID. We don't need to, because we only have one ID for the player. But I want to make it dynamic, so you can control any sprite with the player control. Let's put it in the game loop. And give it the player sprite. Now that we have that, we do need the X and Y of the player because we're going to change it. Gets Y, X. So now we get the player's X and Y and we can change it and then update it. So let's get the key the player pressed. Key get raw key state. This will tell us when the key is down. 38 is for the up arrow key. So if key up is pressed, key will be equals to 1. So if key do something. So let's see, what should we do? Set sprite Y. Okay. Set sprite Y. Which sprite? The player sprite or the sprite ID. Sprite ID, and it will set it to Y minus speed. Remember what speed is? Speed is the player speed. It's global, so we can use it anywhere, even inside the function scope. So let's see what this does. Yeah, but it doesn't change the frame, it just moves up. So let's make it also change the frame. Set sprite frame, sprite ID, set it to 1. 1 is this one. It's when it looks like towards the screen. When it goes up, you'll see. So the sprite looks towards us, we press up, the sprite changes its frame. So let's copy that and do this for down too. Down is 40. And we'll change this to plus. That's it. Like, I'll show you in a moment what. So we can move up and down. We'll also have to change the sprite to 3 when it moves down. Okay, so by adding like, let's say this is 1010, the position of the sprite is 1010. If the Y is 10, right? So if we reduce it by 5, it will go here, it will go like here. Let's say this is 5, and if we'll add 5, it will go to 15 here. So if you move down, you need to add to the Y by the speed, or if you go up, you need to reduce the Y by the speed. And it's the same for the X. And like, if you want to move to the right, you'll need to add to the X like plus 5 plus speed, and to the other side it's minus speed towards the 0. Remember, here at the top it's 0 0, so here it's 0 for X, and here it's 0 for Y, like this line. So let's do the X buttons, the buttons for changing the X of the sprite. Left and right. Left, X, x and minus, and the sprite ID is 4, I think. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. This one is not 40, it's supposed to be 37. Move up, down, and left. Let's do the right. Right is 39. The right key. Change this to plus, and it's 2. It's the second one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's the second one. Second frame. So now we can move around. All we have left to do is pick the stick and update the text when we pick the stick. So let's first do the pick stick function. So we'll also pass it the sprite ID of the player. Let's put it in the game loop so we won't forget. So let's see, what should we do? If get sprite collision, if get sprite collision between sprite ID and stick sprite. So if the sprite ID we got from the constructor, in our case the player, collides with stick sprite, do something. And if. So inside of it we'll have to do two things. Put it in a random position, random pose, stick sprite, and increment the points. In AppGameKit we increment by writing inc, and the variable you want to increment points is this thing, this global variable that counts the points. Okay. You won't see the points change because we don't update the text, but we see it works because the stick is teleporting around when we pick it. Okay, let's do the update text function. That's the last thing we'll have to do. So we'll need 2 lines of code to update the text. Set text string. So this also gets 2 arguments. The text ID you want to change. We want to change points txt. That's the ID. it's this one. It's basically 1. But I put it so we'll know which text we're changing. We are changing points.txt. We'll change it to points and plus str. We'll have to change the type of points for this time only. We'll have to change it to string, so that's how you cast between data types. We're casting points to a string, so we can create this string, points plus whatever this number is. Let's see. Yeah, we forgot to put it in update. In the update loop, in the game loop. Okay, so this works. And for the rank we'll need a few ifs. After we'll do the same for the rank. Here we don't have to cast anything. Let's see if it works. Rank none. Okay, so if points is bigger than 10, then the shorthand of if. That's the shorthand of if. If rank equals stick picker. If the points is bigger than 20, then you're pro stick picker. And if it's bigger than 30, you're a master stick picker. And if it's bigger than 40, then you probably have nothing better to do with your life than pick sticks, so your rank is no life. Let's test it. Let's pick 10 sticks. I'm not going to pick more than 10 because, you know, I have stuff to do. You have stuff to do. Probably watch a cat video or something. That's it. That means it works. And that's it. That's how you make a simple picking sticks game. If you have any question, you can ask in the comments, in the forum, or contact me using the contact details I give. Yeah, and that's it. That's all there is to it. That's a picking sticks game in less than 130 lines of code. Yeah, and that's it for this lesson.